Now stay tuned for Revisiting the Dream next. Revisiting the Dream, celebrating the 35th anniversary of Detroit's Walk to Freedom, sponsored by Detroit Edison, a DTE energy company, and the 31 Metro Detroit Ford dealers. Think Ford first. The March on Washington represents the highlight of the civil rights era. Yet on June 23rd, the blueprint for that march was actually realized in the city of Detroit, the Walk to Freedom.
Little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
I was born by the river in a little temple, just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
In the 60s in Detroit, we were just another segregated northern city.
The racial atmosphere in Detroit at that time was not good.
The Afro-American community was ghettoized, and it was like an enforced encampment because of the police activities.
Stopping black people on the city streets and searching them, really arresting them, and even I was stopped one evening.
Oh, yes, it will, yeah. Then I go to my brother.
One of the things they did was to take the very esteemed executive of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and throw him up against a car and frisk him.
Slammed against the hood of a car directly in front of this church.
The issue of police brutality was a very serious one confronting the black community.
I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on.
The housing patterns were segregated. We had public housing battles left and right whenever some housing project was planned in a neighborhood that had not been all African American. You could usually expect a disruption.
There were limitations. For instance, if you were going to think about going to Grosse Pointe, that certainly was not open to you. And if you wanted to live in Palmer Woods, that was not really open either.
What you could see of the patterns of job discrimination is take the way Hudson's department store downtown was. The only jobs that black people had at that time in Hudson's were running the elevators, serving as doormen in other maintenance areas.
Discrimination in the city agencies, including predominantly the police and fire departments, was just the way of life.
And you had nowhere really to address your grievances.
Kavanaugh was brand new in office in '63. He'd been elected on the basis of the people's disgust with Mayor Mariani's stop and frisk law.
And Kavanaugh, being the young youngest candidate we'd ever had at that time. He was 33 years old. He understood the issue and promised to do something about it.
So Jerry was a person that had aligned himself with some of the movers and shakers and was really, I think, somewhat, I would say, of a catalyst, yes.
And there were a lot of people like us who didn't know him from Adam, but we were so disgusted with with Mayor Mariani's stop and frisk law and other kinds of policies that we voted for Kavanaugh. I mean, we had to have someone new in there.
There was some hope on the part of black people that things would get better. For the most part, I think they were disappointed.
I think there were people who felt that we weren't moving fast enough in dealing with some of these issues, like the police role, like the question of moving faster on integration, on removing some of the horrors of segregation. And C.L. Franklin had a large church, and he was prepared to move, and he wasn't going to sit around and wait for various people to reach, a variety of agreements. He said the time has come and we've got to do this.
The NAACP at that time, in the leadership at least, consisted of a lot of people who had already made it. And you know that in any group that is discriminated against, there are always some who made it and have worked very hard to assume a certain position and want to protect it and feel threatened by change.
The Detroit Council for Human Rights spoke to the more immediate necessity of not just recording racial incidents and acts of discrimination, but of doing something about them.
Some of the people involved saw the NAACP still as an important organization, perhaps even still the leading organization, civil rights organization. But they were also enjoying a new opportunity for leadership here and a new expression of interest in the black community.
He was a little too flamboyant for some. He had a little too much charisma for others. He was a little too outspoken for others. And because of the fact that he was pastor of a church down on Hastings Street, they did not really get to know C.L. Franklin, did not get to know the type of person that he was and what he was capable of.
Because he had the church and because he had the broadcasting, he was able to reach a wide, inclusive audience. And those who were anxious for change could see him as a voice.
We're gonna light your world, gonna give you the power.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
That's the way CL used to do things. He would just get the idea that I'm going to do something big. In those days, he would do a big concert with Mahalia Jackson, with Aretha and Little Sam and those kind of things. But it would be something just brought together. It wasn't so we're going to have 10 this year and so many the next. It would just be a time when he wanted to move on those things. And he felt that it was time to bring this type of demonstration to Detroit.
There was a meeting held in Franklin's church with a number of people, primarily leaders in the church movement, to talk about civil rights activity. I spoke as a member of Michigan Friends of the South, and somehow out of all the talks and all of the ideas that came out of that meeting was that we needed a mass march down Woodward Avenue to demonstrate the feeling of people, both liberal whites and the total black population.
That we shall overcome someday.
CL was friends of Dr. King, very close friends all through the years.
I remember a lot of people in the leadership who said that Franklin can't pull it off, that he'll never be able to turn out the crowds, but he did.
When they were asked to participate in it, they refused because they said that they didn't think that it was going to work and that he would not get a large enough turnout to actually make a statement. It was the common man that got interested in the march and decided to promote it and participate in it. Because I guess the points that were being made and why this march needed to become were some of the things that had been in the back of their minds. It just escalated, and it seemed to me that it happened so fast after it was first announced that, you know, it was almost scary because one week nobody was talking about it, and then everybody was talking about it.
Just what do you hope to accomplish here, Reverend Franklin? Well, the original purpose of getting this group together was to protest this southern situation, particularly in Birmingham and Jackson. But of course, we will concern ourselves and address ourselves to other immediate problems.
The day before the march, I know I had a mix of feelings. The sense that we absolutely had to be there, that we had to add to the body count. There was also a degree of anxiety.
Everybody was happy. For one thing, it was a gorgeous day.
Early that morning, I received a telephone call from my ex-partner, John Swainson. And he was the former governor of the state of Michigan. And John called me and said, well, do you think that it's going to be all right for the white political leadership to join hands to march down Woodward Avenue and et cetera? I said, you'd be an absolute fool. I said, absolutely nothing's going to happen.
So that morning, we got up, got down there, and were so elated and pleased and grinning at each other and everybody else about how many people had shown up.
Once I got down on the street, all of my apprehension and fears faded away, and I knew 1,000% it would never happen.
People latched onto it. I think every prominent politician wanted to be visible in the front row of that march, regardless of how they felt in their hearts. What they were showing on their faces was a big smile.
There was a lot of people down there that day.
I think this was about, 250,000. It probably was twice that much.
The people that were around me were caught up in this thing. I mean, King was like, it was just like seeing Jesus.
There was a young white officer
He looked as if he'd just come out of the academy. And he stood there. He went through all the emotions of perplexity, apprehension. Oh, he was on edge. So we walked over, we told him, look, young man, go stand on the inside of the doors over there. I think you'll be a little bit more comfortable. Relief flooded over him as he went into the inside. He didn't know how to handle this mass of people. It was that overpowering.
We had never seen that many black folks at one place at one time on a peaceful mission. You understand?
Segregation is wrong because it is nothing but a new form of slavery covered up with certain niceties of complexity. Segregation is wrong because it is a system of adultery perpetuated by an illicit intercourse between injustice and immorality.
I think that it empowered people. That's an overused word sometimes, but I think it did. It said to us that we can take things in our own hands. We can stand up and say we won't put up with this anymore.
They became more aware of the plight of Afro-Americans living in the city of Detroit and the conditions under which they were living and existing.
Oh, they loved it, and that was the first time that he gave his I Have a Dream speech. And I guess it was kind of a rehearsal for the March on Washington. So we felt very elated about that also because we thought that we had been privy to it before the nation. And it was just great. It was a lifetime experience that, you don't often get a chance to participate in.
And so I go back to the South not in despair. I go back to the South not with a feeling that we are caught in a dark dungeon that will never lead to a way out. I go back believing that the new day is coming. And so this afternoon I have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day, right down in Georgia and Mississippi and Alabama, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to live together as brothers. I have a dream this afternoon that one day little white children and little Negro children will be able to join hands as brothers and sisters. I have a dream this afternoon that one day men will no longer burn down houses in the Church of God simply because people want to be free. I have a dream this afternoon that there will be a day that we will no longer face the atrocities that Emmett Till had to face or Medgar Evers had to face, but that all men can live with dignity. I have a dream this afternoon that my four little children will not come up in the same young days that I came up within, but they will be judged on the basis of the content of their character, not the color of their skin. I have a dream this afternoon that one day right here in Detroit, Negroes will be able to buy a house or rent a house anywhere that their money will carry them. They will be able to get a job. Yes, I have a dream this afternoon. One day in this land, the words of Amos will become real. Justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I have a dream this evening that one day we will recognize the words of Jefferson that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I have a dream this afternoon. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. I have a dream this afternoon that the brotherhood of man will become a reality in this day. With this faith, I will go out, carve a tunnel of hope through the mountain of despair. With this faith, I will go out with you and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. With this faith, we will be able to achieve this new day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing with the Negroes in the spiritual of old, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty.
Revisiting the Dream has been brought to you by Detroit Edison, a DTE energy company, and the 31 Metro Detroit Ford dealers. Think Ford first.
The dream of a world where we'll all be free from racial injustice and poverty, where a person is judged by content of character and color is just a part of still have a dream of a world where we'll all be free from racial injustice and poverty, where a person is judged by content of character and color is just a part of history. Oh, we shall overcome diversity together.
come easily. We will march for freedom. I still have a dream. We will be free and made. Free of hatred. Free of hatred. No more bigotry. And this beautiful dream.